MMA, the sport made for modern-day gladiators, is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. It's not surprising to see that fighters get injured pretty often. They are trying to rip each other's heads off for a living after all. But sometimes the injuries are so severe they make the viewers cringe in disgust. Today we're going to list the most gruesome injuries to date in the UFC. Let's begin. Starting off with number 10, Tim Sylvia's arm break vs Frank Mir. Lots of non-fight fans think that striking is the best way to win a fight, but after taking a closer look at MMA, most are quick to realize that a fighter with a good ground game is just as, if not more, dangerous than someone who can hit hard. The example of this severe MMA injury is the best justification for this claim. Frank Mir is, without a question, among the best heavyweights of all time. Mir, in his prime, was renowned for his cunning submissions, which often resulted in significant damage to his opponents. He probably figured that using his superior BJJ skills would be the most effective method to defeat the 6'8" giant that is Sylvia. More so because the ground game is proven to be highly effective when fighting physically bigger opponents. In their bout for the vacant heavyweight title at UFC 53, Mir brutally broke Sylvia's hand off with an armbar. Frank's also famed for his tap or snap technique as he broke Sylvia's hand like a twig after he refused to tap. Ouch. To everyone's relief, the referee stepped in and put an end to the brawl. Sylvia's recovery from the incident was lengthy as it took multiple rods and many stitches to mend his broken arm. This incident put him out of action for several months. Up next at number 9, Rory MacDonald's disfigured face. Truth be told, we fight fans want to witness more than two guys holding one another on the ground, while trying to bend each other's limbs in ways they shouldn't be going. While we appreciate ground troops, the action is in the brawl for most of us. Rory MacDonald and Robbie Lawler are strikers who have shown that they are not afraid of a physical confrontation. A slaughter was expected and received from their UFC 189 matchup, but no one anticipated it to be as violent and gruesome as it actually was. Even though Lawler was declared the winner by technical knockout, you wouldn't know it from watching him bleed out on the canvas with his head down and his strength completely depleted. But MacDonald was the one who wound up with the most severe injuries that night. After the bout, a CT scan showed that the punch that ended the fight had separated part of his nose from his skull. Coming up at number 8 with Shogun's elbow dislocation. One of the most tragic injuries in mixed martial arts history occurred while Pride FC was at its height in Japan, long before the UFC rose to prominence. When Mark Coleman was at the peak of his powers for Pride, he went off against the legendary Shogun Rua. Shogun opened the fight with rapid strikes and an attempt at submission. In less than a minute though, Rua's arm was broken after he landed badly from a Coleman takedown. The aftermath of Rua's accident, when his training partner Wanderlei entered the ring to defend him, was even crazier than the injury itself. The scene was truly chaotic. As for the injury, it'll go down as one of the most bizarre in early mixed martial arts history. Moving on to number 7, Mike Pierce's leg snap vs Palhares. In 2013, the Brazilian Palhares faced off against Pierce in a bout promoted as a fight between two outstanding submission artists. Infamously, Palhares had a habit of sitting on submissions for too long. When Palhares locked his leg around Pierce's, the once fluid fight took a dark turn. After Pierce came dangerously close to tapping, Palhares held onto his foot. The referee tried to separate them, but he clung to Pierce's leg nevertheless. After a while, he let go of Pierce's badly injured leg. Pierce came back from the injuries for one last fight against Ryan LaFleur and hasn't fought since. As for Palhares, he was released by the UFC almost immediately after the incident, making him one of the dirtiest fighters ever to enter the octagon. Next at number 6, Leslie Smith's ear explosion. This fight took place in the women's flyweight at UFC 198. When the two fighters met in the octagon, it was a nasty sight. After the first round, both strikers were evenly matched and had gone the distance to see the end of the round, but suddenly, only 90 seconds into the second round, the fight shifted gears. Leslie had been casually holding a fight stance. Her fists rotated continuously to find the best area to land a flurry of punches on Jessica. But then suddenly, Jessica swung a hard right hook at Leslie's ear, causing a spray of blood. Upon closer inspection, it was her cauliflower ear that had exploded. The wound was hard to look at as her cartilage was hanging by the last straw while the bleeding never stopped. Thankfully, referee Herb Dean called a stop to the contest before the injury got any worse, though we don't think there was much more room to make it look worse than it already was. Moving on to number 5, Mark's hematoma vs Jose Aldo. At UFC 129, Jose Aldo, who is widely considered to be one of the most formidable fighters in the division's history, was defending his featherweight championship for the first time against Mark Hominick. The fight went the distance, finishing all 5 rounds with the Brazilian legend emerging victorious by unanimous decision. Though what was most alarming about the fight was Mark's huge hematoma. The swelling on his head was so large that it looked like another small head was sprouting out of his head. Despite all of this, the Canadian stood his ground, fought till the 5th round, and was afterward taken into the emergency ward to minimize the swelling before it could have caused a major brain injury. Next at number 4, Matt Mitrione's swollen eye. At UFC 198, Matt met Travis in what would become one of the most contentious moments in heavyweight history. The fight was going well until Travis started poking Matt in the eye. Matt's vision later on became impaired because he was poked twice during the fight, and what changed the course of the fight was a monster shot from Brown that fractured his orbital bone, though all credit to Matt for eating that shot like a boss. However, with Matt's right eye permanently damaged, the fight was stopped in the 3rd round. He later filed an appeal, but sadly his attempt to overturn the loss was unsuccessful. Time for our top 3, Nogueira's shoulder dislocation. Once again, Frank Mir's name appears again on this list, and unlike the Tim Sylvia incident, this one is likely to hit closer to home. Frank knocked out Big Nog with a barrage of punches at UFC 92, but the rematch ended in far more terrible fashion. Mir had Minotauro locked in a Kimura, but the renowned Nog was hesitant to tap. Mir enraged, then broke his arm inside the ring with a vicious twist. When the replay of the bizarre incident that caused the referee to stop the fight was shown, the crowd gasped in fear. Moving on to number 2, Marvin Eastman's missing eyebrow. Did you know that kickboxing originated with the use of a sword and shield? When you think about it, it's obvious that this is the case. Well, it's true that Vitor Belfort didn't slice Marvin Eastman with a masterfully constructed samurai sword at UFC 43. Eastman may be forgiven for thinking that he did. Belfort didn't need a sword. He went by with just his fists, elbows, and knees. His ability to deal so much damage without any additional weaponry is not shocking if you take a good look at him. Looking at Eastman's eyebrows, it's hard to imagine how his days went by after this horrific incident, how incredibly difficult it must have been for him to perform day-to-day tasks, such as wiping his face, taking a shower, or making any type of facial expression. Finally, at number 1, Anderson Silva's leg snap. Most MMA followers will know this already. In the blink of an eye, one of the greatest fighters of all time suffered the kind of bizarre injury you'd expect to see in a horror movie, rather than the octagon. As a result of Anderson Silva's showboating, Chris Weidman knocked him out in July 2013 and instantly shot to international stardom, gaining wealth and a legion of adoring fans. In December of the same year, MMA fans were hoping Silva would exact his revenge and prove his first loss was an anomaly. No one could have foreseen that the second bout would end so dramatically. Shortly after the second round's 1-minute mark, when Weidman blocked a leg kick from Silva, Silva's leg cracked like a twig, causing the fight to immediately result in a stoppage. While the fighter screamed in agony, the severity of his injury caused many to question whether or not Silva, who was 38 years old by then, would ever return to the ring again. And that's a wrap for this video. Do you have anything to add to this list? Please let us know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.